Put out an attribution of the parliamentary network being breached by the People's Republic of China connected actor APT 40 in 2021. We've come out to say this because there is clearly a pattern of behaviour and attacks on democratic institutions. We believe it's really important from New Zealand's point of view that we acknowledge and attribute that.
What information was accessed?
Sorry?
Is this the same as what Andrew Little was?
No, it's another one.
It's separate, is it?
Yes. It's a separate one.
And what information was accessed? Can you tell us that?
I can't tell you that for security reasons, but I can say that it went into the got into the Parliamentary Council's office, which is obviously a very important part of our democratic institutions.
And how long did the hacker have access?
I can tell you that very quickly it was found and steps were taken.
We're doing days, weeks, months?
I think you would need to ask the Director General of the GCSB, who, as I understand, is making himself available today to give you what information he can, given that for security reasons, we need to be very oblique about it.
Were you surprised to hear that China was hacking New Zealand?
Well, we knew about the other issue that had been previously attributed by Andrew Little. This is another one and very significant.
Has the government
perhaps I'll do it one time.
Has the government raised this with China at all, either when the attack was made or subsequently?
I understand that officials have earlier this month raised the issue of cybersecurity attacks, but I wouldn't be able to confirm which particular one.
Why hasn't this been done on a minister-to-minister level, though?
Well, I haven't met with the Minister of Defence, for a GCSB equivalent.
Was it raised with the Foreign Minister while he was out here?
Well, you'd have to ask the Minister. I didn't meet with him.
And obviously the UK and the US have launched sanctions. We're not going down that road. Why?
I think the public attribution from New Zealand's point of view is quite significant, and that is where we are. Also, the other countries that you've mentioned have got legislation that enables them to apply those. We don't. We have no plans to put that in place. We have a very full legislative agenda.
On the actual hack itself, can you tell us about the data? Was it accessed? Was it incurred?
I think you'd need to speak to the GCSB on that one. It'll be available, I think.
What has this done to the...
Was it Thomas first?
Why not the United States? They've made similar allegations overnight.
Well, this is something that you might find that others wish to attribute. We are doing it on the basis that it is showing a pattern of behaviour, and we know it's not acceptable. It is totally unacceptable, and it is something that our democratic institutions are absolutely sacrosanct to us, and we are going to do whatever we can to protect them.
Just to confirm what you said earlier, Chinese involvement in this particular hack was only confirmed earlier this year, was it? Or months in recent times?
It has been for some time, and I can't give you the exact details. But again, speak to the GCSB director.
So why is it made public today?
The Chinese government is disputing this. They're saying this is all malicious slander by the UK and the United States. What would you say to that?
Well, I think they're incorrect.
So why was the information being released today?
Because it shows a pattern of behaviour, and of course we are working. Well, we're working with, obviously, in relation to our other liberal democracies, such as the United Kingdom, because we believe it is important that we stand together on these matters.
Were you not able to verify it until this information was released?
Well, of course, this was done under the previous government. They no doubt did verify it, but I think it is important that once we are aware, but also in supporting the UK, we think this is something that we should do.
So you're absolutely sure?
Sorry, is there a particular reason why we're talking about just the UK, given the extensive commentary from the US overnight and sanctions?
Well, and the US as well. I mean, it's very important that liberal democracies stand up for other liberal democracies when it comes to these democratic institutions. This is the first very serious attack that I'm aware of against one of our democratic institutions.
But in terms of the US, I mean, your statement, this is all about nuance and what you do and don't say. Is there a particular reason why the US wasn't included in that condemnation, that statement that you...
No, not at all.
So you're 100% sure that these attacks came from China? It sounds like the Chinese are denying this. You are 100% unequivocally saying that these are coming from the Chinese government.
I trust our security agencies.
How concerned are you about the GCSB holding that foreign spyware for a foreign state and keeping the New Zealand politicians, our government, in the dark about it?
Yes, well, it was around a decade ago, a long time before the rethink and of the GCSB and security agencies. It is also before we had the Inspector General for the security agency, so it's really important to understand it was a long time ago. Having said that, it is not acceptable for any of our agencies to host another country's agency without express permission of the minister, which wasn't had. Well, they've all left. All the decision makers, I've been assured, have already left. So in terms of holding to account, it's a little late.
Can the Chinese just further explain why we had to wait for other countries to call out this kind of behaviour? If we knew what the story was here, why couldn't we just do that? Why couldn't we make this?
Well, you'd have to ask Mr Hipkins, who was the Prime Minister at the time.
This has been in government for however many months now.
Well,
why couldn't you have done it now?
Because I have the information now.
Are you aware of New Zealand MPs being targeted specifically?
I'm not aware of any New Zealand MPs being targeted.
Was their data potentially caught up in a hack of parliamentary service?
I don't know. You'd need to speak to the director. It is really important, and I'm sure you're aware that the security issues around this mean that it's not acceptable for me to give you reckons. It's very important that you speak to the director.
How do you feel about the New Zealand government hosting the Chinese Foreign Minister in the heart of its democracy last week?
Well, I think that is what we do. I mean, New Zealand and China have been very good friends for a very long time.
Are you
but
still?
Absolutely, and I think it's very important though that we have a very consistent and predictable relationship with China. So we will speak about human rights issues, for instance, in China. And we will call out the sort of behaviour that we find unacceptable.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Does New Zealand view China as a threat, yes or no?
I think we're very, very aware that China is a very good friend, and we obviously have a long-term relationship with them, but what we are also never going to accept people attacking our democratic institutions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is China a very good friend?
Look, we've got a long-standing complex relationship with China. It's been for 50 years. We collaborate and cooperate where we can on issues around trade and on climate, but obviously we also have differences, and we call those out, consistently and predictably.
Is China a very good friend?
Again, we've got a long-standing important relationship with China, and what we're doing here is we're calling out where we see malicious cyber activity from any state that attacks our democratic institutions. We are going to stand up for those
values. Should we take sanctions too? The US and the UK have launched sanctions. Should we follow suit?
No, I think this is a first for New Zealand, publicly attributing a malicious cyber activity on our democratic institutions by China. It's a big step for us, and obviously MFAT will be underscoring our message today with the embassy as well.
Will you
Why are we not doing
Sorry.
Is China a threat to our democracy?
Well, look, I mean, there's no doubt about it. We've got increasing geostrategic competition all around the world. It's a more contested world for sure. But again, what we're doing here is we have a relationship that is, where we collaborate and we cooperate incredibly strongly on developing trade and climate change. But importantly, we also will stand up and call out China or any other state that actually attacks our public
Can I
institutions.
just get you to answer that question?
Sorry.
Can I just get you to answer that question? Is China a threat to our democracy?
There is many state actors and criminal actors that are threats to our institutions and our democracy, including liberal democracy around the world.
China engages in foreign interference in New Zealand that's been openly acknowledged by the government. That makes them a threat to our democracy, does it not?
Well, there has been instances of foreign interference, and you've seen the previous administration call it out. This is a different level of public attribution, which we are following through and delivering today.
Are you worried about
what actions?
Sorry, Thomas.
What actions will we take if they are threatening our democracy in this way and working in this
Well, this is a first and a very big step for New Zealand.
Calling them out, what actions
Well,
will we
actually
take?
calling it out is important, because being public about it and putting sunlight on it and calling it out is actually a very good thing.
Will the Chinese ambassador be called into MFAT?
again, MFAT will be talking with the embassy today to underscore our position that we've outlined today.
You've just said that liberal democracies are also attacking New Zealand's democracy.
No, I didn't say that. No, liberal democracy is under attack around the world, and what we need to do is where we see foreign interference that undermines our public institutions and our democratic institutions that protect our liberal democracy, we call those out.
Other countries have put economic forms of sanctions on China because of this. Are you worried that if New Zealand does this, there'll be some sort of economic attacks back from China, some sort of reciprocity for that?
As I said, we've got a relationship that's got several components to it. There is no doubt that we have a very constructive relationship about developing trade on a range of other issues, and we'll continue to do that.
Are you worried that if you put any sanctions on them, that they would hit back with?
No, it's just that this is an entirely appropriate response from New Zealand for the incident that we incurred back in August 2021. What we're doing is, this is the very first time we have publicly attributed China to interference in our democratic processes and institutions. This is also, we're standing up with like-minded countries that also have values that want to protect liberal democracies around the world, and I think it's the right response.
And why now? Why are we speaking out now? I mean, this happened in 2021. Are we only speaking out because our Five Eyes partners here?
No, the time frame's not unusual if you look at the UK incidences, which are different from ours, but are similar in terms of a foreign state undermining public institutions. It takes time, and so there was an immediate response and identification. There was good mitigation, and then we spend time building the case of attribution to make sure that when we make a statement like this, we can publicly attribute it. Sorry.
Is there any suggestion that anything else might have been targeted rather than just the parliamentary system?
No, there's no evidence that the Electoral Commission there's been any interference in our elections or through the Electoral Commission whatsoever. This incident is around the PCO and also parliamentary services, as we've talked about, and it was quickly identified. There were mitigations taken immediately, and importantly then the process of attribution and making sure we've got the evidence post the incident is what we've been working on, and so that's what I announced it today. No, those are decisions for New Zealand to make in its own right, but this is a very big first step. I just say to you, this is a big first step. Yeah.
It's a big first step, but it's not the Minister said it's a pattern of behaviour. You're talking about it's a right behaviour. It's a pattern of behaviour. We've got no skin in the game. The US and the UK, they're both putting sanctions on, and we're simply doing nothing.
No, I disagree completely. There is malicious cyber activity that happens from transnational criminal organisations and from various state actors. You would have seen us in recent months come out, earlier this year, standing with the UK government, calling out Russia for its attacks on the British democratic systems and institutions as well. In this case, for New Zealand, it's entirely appropriate that we are publicly attributing for the first time malicious cyber activity from China that undermines our democratic traditions. Sorry, Adam.
Does this change your thinking in any way in terms of how New Zealand interacts with China at?
No, we've been very clear-eyed since we've been very clear. Well, we've been very clear-eyed about the risks and threats of malicious cyber activity and foreign interference from other states in New Zealand, including China, and that's why we're calling that out today.
But as you're saying, this is significant. You're saying this is a significant day because you're calling out the impact on our democratic institutions. So how can you say to the New Zealand people this is not going to change how New Zealand interacts with China?
Well, I would just say to you, since we've become the government, we've been very clear-eyed about our approach in managing the relationship with China. There are areas where we have collaboration and we can collaborate very effectively, but there are also areas where we have differences and we call those out predictably and consistently. And that has been our position since taking the government, as you would have seen.
Still travel and sorry.
You met Wang Yi last week. Did
Yes.
you mention this with him?
We raised, our officials raised malicious cyber activity earlier in the month. In my short meeting with him, I didn't raise this particular incident because it was a very short courtesy call. He was there to deal with the foreign minister and he called upon me.
Effectively in a bilateral setting. Surely.
Sat down with him, yes, and we talked about a range of issues, but this was not something I raised
Do you
at that time.
expect this call out that you've done will prevent any further malicious cyber attacks from China?
Well, as a liberal democracy, we stand up for values. We have an independent foreign policy. We believe very strongly in the values of our democracy. And rather than just believing in them, when we actually see them being under attack, we actually call them out. And that's what we're doing today.
Well,
that's why it is a
future attacks.
Well, I think it's an important step that we have just, as liberal democracies, like-minded liberal democracies that have strong values, that we actually all collectively put this into the public domain, put sunlight on it, and actually call it out.
How do you intend to harm New Zealand's democracy?
Sorry?
How do you intend to harden New Zealand's democracy against these threats?
Well, we've got a range, particularly in the cyber security space. We've got a National Security Centre for Cyber Security. They continue to upgrade our capability. We continue to raise, put attention around it.
What's your progress on foreign interference laws, other sort of policy work that was going on last year?
That's still ongoing, and we've got work ongoing in that space. Yep.
And will this affect your...
A similar but separate act in 2021, which Andrew Little revealed at the time. How are you being forthcoming with this information when this one also happened in 2021 that you're revealing today, and we're 3 years later, yet at the time the government revealed it in the same calendar year?
Two different incidences, as I understand it. The one that Andrew Little was talking about was general malicious cyber activity from a range of state actors,
but specifically APT 40, which is
yes,
what we're
correct.
talking about now.
Yes, but this is a very different.
Forthcoming with that at the time. This
Yes.
is another incident from the same actor that has happened in the same
Yes.
year, and it's 3 years later.
And it happened in August 2021. Our new government's been in place since late November, and what you've seen us do is actually call out this behaviour because it was a very specific, targeted attack on our PCO and our parliamentary services. Fortunately, in this case, it was identified quickly. There were quick mitigations in place, and now we are publicly attributing China as the actor that actually attacked our public institutions.
Were you briefed on it as opposition?
Sorry?
Were you briefed on it as opposition?
Not that I recall, but subsequently, since I've become Prime Minister, it's something that I've been aware of.
Can I just confirm,
When
Prime
exactly were you briefed as Prime Minister?
In more recent times around my security meetings that I have with different intelligence
Prime
agencies.
Minister, will this stop any travel?
Sorry, I'm not going to go into that. Sorry,
We're
no.
just trying to figure out the timing of why you're announcing it.
I'll just say to you very clearly, this timing is not unusual. Look at what's happened with the UK events, which are of a similar time frame. No, it's just the process that's required, which is that first and foremost you want to identify the threat, then you need to put the mitigations and the defences in place immediately afterwards, and then you need to go through a very rigorous process of public attribution, which is what we've been working on.
Can I confirm, will this stop any planned visits to China this year, the Trade Minister, yourself or the Foreign Minister?
No, we're just calling out, we've been very straight with the Chinese and our relationships with them to say we will predictably and consistently call out areas of difference, publicly or privately, where we have issues. We have raised cybersecurity issues and malicious cybersecurity activity in the past. This is a very specific incident, and we're actually attributing it very publicly to China today.
Do you trust the Chinese government?
We, as I said, have a long-standing relationship that's got several components to it. We collaborate where we can, we stand up for our values where there are differences.
Are there any
Right, gotta go.
You asked me who do you trust the Chinese government?